there's just been some streaks, throughout the history. We've been on the right side of it for the last 25 years, more often than not. But a lot of pride in both programs, and a lot of, again, hate in the heart everybody has fan base-wise for each other. But got great respect, for their program, and again, the rich history and tradition of this game and what it means for the season for everybody.
Hello and welcome in. It is our Week 7 preview show on Always College Football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy. We appreciate you being here very much. We love our preview show. We spend so much time watching tape, putting together questions, leading kind of the conversation for how these games could potentially wind up this weekend. We got a bunch of good ones too. When you look at the schedule in the preseason, you thought Week 7 had a chance. And guess what? With how things have gone in the first 6 weeks, it has materialized. It's probably the best weekend to date with some of the matchups that we have across the board, not just in the Big Ten, but in the SEC, some massive opportunities, some gotta-have-it situations. So it's a really, really great week. We hope you guys are as excited as we are. We will kick it off here in just a moment with our breakdown. But before we do, want to encourage everybody. A lot of people watch the show in the preview shows. Just want to encourage you to please like, rate, and subscribe. Please. We're asking that very nicely. It doesn't cost you anything, doesn't require anything outside of a couple minutes of your time on the podcast platform of your choosing. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. For those of you that are here with us via the ESPN College Football YouTube page, just hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to that page as well. We'll send out clips of these individual previews on there for sure. So keep it locked in on the ESPN College Football YouTube page. So now that I've done the business side of things, let's get into it, man. And we'll kick things off in the noon window with the number 1 team in the country. The top-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes traveled to Champaign, Illinois to take on the 17th-ranked Illinois Fighting Illini. This is at Memorial Stadium. It's 12 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. First meeting between the two programs since 2017. I didn't realize that this was a trophy game. It's the Illibuck Rivalry Trophy, so I'm excited about that. Ryan Day, just a staggering record, 75-10 overall. That 88-2 winning percentage, the highest in major college football history, surpassed Newt Rockne. Even though Ryan Day has not been a head coach for the 10-year threshold for official record keeping, he has the best winning percentage in the history of the sport as of this moment. So pretty cool. And his dominance in the Big Ten is especially notable. He's pretty much flawless in conference, with the one exception being the Michigan Wolverines, which has been a little bit of a thorn in his side. But for the most part, man, against everybody else, very few people have done it better than Ryan Day. Brett Bielema on the other side, veteran coach, been around a long time, highly successful run at Wisconsin, won 3 straight Big Ten championships there back in the early 2010s. He's just 1-5 all time, though, against the Buckeyes. That's in his time at Wisconsin. He's never faced them as the head coach of Illinois. The quarterback matchup's a good one. Julian Sayin, and through 5 games, he's lived up to the hype. He is operating this offense with remarkable precision. His completion percentage is through the roof. His yards per attempt, pretty good. His touchdown interception ratio, 13-3. There's a lot to like with how Julian Sayin is staying within the confines of this system and operating at a really, really high level. Luke Altmaier, on the other side, has been very productive and has been super protective of the football. His completion percentage is also 73+, over 1,500 yards, which is about 260+ a game, and an impressive 12-0 touchdown interception ratio. He also has done a great job in materializing explosive plays. Against Purdue, for example, he threw for nearly 400 on just 22 attempts, which is pretty remarkable when you take into account it's about 18 yards a throw. Now, the injury report, there are a couple of impactful injuries in this one. Ohio State, for the most part, pretty healthy. For Illinois, take a peek, Xavier Scott. Probably going to be out for a while. He's kind of the anchor of the secondary there at one of the corner spots, and he would have been huge in this one to match up with Ohio State's super elite wide receivers. And this kind of creates a bit of a domino effect. Jaheim Clark, who was out a couple weeks ago, he's now back. He's now thrust into a significant role. They also, it's not just Scott, by the way. Matt Bailey has been in concussion protocol. Caleb Patterson and Torrey Cox have also been banged up, even though they're expected to play. So the secondary for Illinois. Take a peek at that. That could be problematic against a high-powered Buckeye offense. Question number 1. How will Illinois' secondary handle the Ohio State's elite wide receivers? Ohio State's receiving corps, both Cornell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, probably the best in the country. And they're going to be going against a pass defense that is 113th nationally and is now going to be without their best player. So the injury to an all Big Ten corner, it's a really devastating blow that might force some guys that are relatively inexperienced into the line of fire against an elite aerial assault. Question number 2, can Ohio State's defensive line overwhelm Illinois' offensive line? Illinois' O-line has been kind of a glaring weakness at time to time. They are 125th in the country in pass protection efficiency. They've given up 19 sacks in 6 games, and now they'll have a really tough test against an Ohio State front that's right there in the heart of the best defense in college football. They've been dominant at times. The talent gap is significant. So if Illinois can't find a way to give Luke Altmaier time in the pocket, likely by keeping an extra couple players in the box, whether it's tight ends, running backs, what have you, that explosive passing attack could potentially be neutralized before they even take the snap. So they got to use every single tool available to take some of the pressure off that front with chips, with quick passes, with max protection, with screen game. That might be able to neutralize this pass rush just a little bit. It's going to be challenging for sure. Question number 3, can Illinois take some of the pressure that we just talked about off the O-line by running the football? Now, if you can stay out of the obvious passing situations, that takes a lot of pressure off the offensive line that has struggled in protection. So if you can run the ball and stay out of 3rd and long, that's massive. So I think to have a chance of kind of controlling the game's tempo, protect their defense, Illinois has to establish a legitimate run threat. And this will be a monumental task because right now they are 100th in rushing yards per game. They're 109th in yards per attempt. Now you got to factor in sacks there as well. And they're running right into the teeth of a stout Ohio State run defense. That is a big reason why they're top 10 in pretty much every defensive category. Question number 4, can Illinois turn the Buckeyes over? It's where Illinois has thrived this year. They've been one of the best teams in the country when it comes to turning people over. They forced 10 this year. Ohio State's been pretty clean, by the way. They have just 4 turnovers. That's top 20. But Illinois' turnover margin is top 5. They're plus 7 in that category. So I think Illinois, they have to be able to turn the Buckeyes over to give themselves a chance in this game. I think Illinois is going to have to manufacture some big plays to win this. They're going to have some short fields, and they're going to have to win some hidden yardage to be able to get this win. I don't see how they do it. I think Ohio State is an absolute wrecking crew. I think they go on the road. I think their recipe has been tested on the road already against Washington. I think they handle business. I'd lay the points with the Buckeyes this weekend. We'll go next to another top 15 matchup. This one pits number 8 Alabama on the road at number 14 Missouri. This game will be 12 o'clock Eastern time on ABC from 4-0 Field. Alabama holds a 6-2 series lead in delivering the most recent defeat, 34-0 last week. Kalen DeBoer, incredible record overall as a head coach. He's won 17-17. Most remarkable, though, against AP top 25 opponents, that's when he's been at his best. And in particular, in ranked versus ranked matchups. Ranked versus ranked matchups, he is 13-2. One of those losses was to Tennessee last year. The other was in the national championship game against Michigan when he was the head coach of the Washington Huskies. Eli Drinkwitz on the other side has done a great job. Missouri's program is kind of a perennial 500 team. Now, over the last couple of years, they've kind of transformed into a legitimate SEC contender. It broke through in 2023. They went 11-2. They beat Ohio State there in the Cotton Bowl. That was then followed up, which might have been even more impressive because everyone was aware of what Missouri was capable of. They followed up with a strong 10-win campaign last year that included a Music City Bowl win. However, Eli Drinkwitz has not been great up to this point against AP top 25 teams. As a head coach, he's just 7-14. So that's something to keep an eye on. The quarterback matchup, another good one in this game. Ty Simpson, through 5 games, he's completing over 70%, thrown for nearly 1,500 yards, has just 1 pick against 13 touchdowns. That 1 pick came last week in a 4th-and-1 situation. That wasn't a great decision, but at the same time, it kind of served as a punt. They actually pinned Vanderbilt inside their own 10. He threw for 340 and 2 touchdowns in that game. And I think if you look at where things are going for Ty Simpson, the best is yet to come. The guy has been on a steady ascent towards the top of the sport, and there's very few in the country that are playing more confidently than him, especially the last time he went on the road, hostile environment against Georgia. He was incredible. 3 touchdowns in that performance against one of the better defenses in America. Bo Pribula on the other side has been really good for Missouri. Very efficient throwing the football, completing over 75%, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. But what makes him unique is that he's a real dual threat quarterback. His legs are a critical aspect of this Tigers offense. Now, through the first 3 games early in the year, he had rushed for 76 yards and 3 touchdowns. So on every single snap, you had to account for him. Now, those have come back to earth just a little bit, but his legs are a huge problem, and he can break you down in scrambles, and he can also create misdirection with how they try to run the ball to the outside. Injury report is pretty significant for Alabama. They've been without Quay Russaw and Jamarian Latham. Those are 2 end of the line of scrimmage players, 2 edge players. They're listed as Wolf linebackers. Those 2 guys are both out in this game. And knowing this is a group that really wants to set the edge in the run game, their absence could potentially be significant. And then for Missouri, they do have a starting guard, Logan Reichert, who is listed as questionable right now with kind of an undisclosed injury. His absence could maybe affect the interior of that offensive line, which will be pivotal for those guys to play well against a quality front for the Crimson Tide. Question number 1, can Missouri's rushing attack create problem for Alabama's defense? Definitely the biggest matchup of the game. Missouri's offense is built around trying to create a physical, punishing ground game that does a really good job of forcing the defense to play horizontally. So when you have a run game that forces you to play horizontally, they get you running sideways, and then boom, their running back puts their foot in the ground, gets north and south, and they become very difficult to tackle. As a result, Missouri's averaging 292 rushing yards a game. That's the 3rd best rush offense in the country. And their running back, Ahmad Hardy's been an absolute force. He's averaging over 7 yards a carry. He's a legitimate All-American contender. He is without question a top 5 running back in the entire country. And this rushing attack, they're going to be going against an Alabama run defense that on paper is pretty vulnerable statistically. They're allowing just under 5 yards per carry. That's 104th. Part of the problem for Alabama's rush defense has been inconsistencies in run support from their defensive backs. So a big part of this game will be Alabama's safeties making sure their eyes are in a really good spot. So when Missouri hands the ball off, those guys plug gaps accordingly and get the necessary stops without allowing a lot of yards after contact. They also need to do a great job tackling in this game too, because Missouri is a very difficult team to bring down in the open field. So we just mentioned how the secondary needs to be really good in run support, right? Well, that leads us to question number 2. If Alabama's secondary is super committed to stopping the run, can Missouri's wide receivers win those perimeter matchups? So Kevin Coleman is their go-to guy. He's mostly a catch and run guy, really good. You get him the ball, he does special things with it. He's got 39 catches for 386 yards, but just 1 touchdown. But he's really, really good. The guy to watch in this game is probably Marquise Johnson. He's the big play threat. So off play action, those safeties get nosy. Marquise Johnson's the guy you got to keep an eye on. He's the downfield threat with tremendous speed that could be a problem in creating chunk yardage through the air. They also have one of the better tight ends in the SEC with Brett Norfleet as well. So this is a really good passing attack with an efficient quarterback and a passing game that does a great job of marrying up what they do in the run game. So it'd be very important for Alabama's secondary to be sticky in coverage and not allow those guys to get behind the defense. Question number 3, can Alabama's receivers continue to create problems against Missouri's secondary? Now, you look at Missouri's stats, their profile defensively, really impressive. But they have been compiled against a slate of opponents that don't have anywhere near the firepower that Alabama has on the outside. Look at the secondary. They're allowing right now about 100 passing yards a game. This will be the first really big test of the season. I think Kansas is a capable unit for sure, but Alabama's passing game is really multifaceted. They also have explosiveness, and they have a lot of variety with the personnel that they have. Their wide receiver, Jeremy Bernard, He is a guy that can do so many things with the ball. You can hand it to him, you can throw it to him short, you can throw it to him deep, you can throw it to him on the underneath, you can get him in catch and run situations. He's got 5 touchdowns. But this is a really good group kind of across the board. Ryan Williams, he has been plagued by a few drops, but he's a playmaker and remains a threat on every single offensive snap. His ability to separate is unique, and he always can create big plays in a moment's notice. You also have the length that you have to account for with Isaiah Horton, who's at 6'3" and change, 6'4". He's a big body on the outside that could become a problem on third down and in the red zone. And don't sleep on tight end Josh Cuevas, who seems to be getting better and better and better as the season goes along. Very reliable piece there as kind of the H move tight end for Alabama. Question number 4, is Missouri for real? Like that's the big question. Like, I watch this team and I am super bullish on what I've seen from Missouri up to this point, man. They look great. I think they look really good running the football. I think they are tenacious on the defensive side. I think they do a really good job of knowing who they are on the defensive side. They stay very committed to what they are offensively. This is a well-coached football team with really good personnel. And the numbers completely support this team being elite, especially on third down. But you also have to take into account, who have they played up to this point? That's a real question. But if you look at the numbers, let's just start with the numbers specifically. Remove the level of competition. They're averaging over 45 points a game. That's 7th. 550 yards a game. That's 4th. 300 rushing yards a game nearly. That's 3rd. And they convert nearly 62% of their third downs. It's number 1 in college football. That's on offense. Well, what about defense? Right now, they're 2nd in total defense. They're number 1 in rush defense. They're number 3 in third down conversions allowed. But here's the problem. They've played the 109th ranked strength of schedule. So are these numbers very much legit, or are they inflated? There's really no way of knowing right now. And I think you could even ask Eli Drinkwitz, or you could ask someone else that has played against Missouri, and I'm sure they're tipping their cap to just how good this team is, but none of us really know. Meanwhile, Alabama on the other side has played against Florida State. They've gone to Georgia, and they've beaten a really good 5-1 Vanderbilt team that's currently ranked in the top 25. I'm taking Alabama, and it's because they're battle tested. I would, however, take the points here. This number is around 3.5 or so, 3 in some places, 4 in some places. Probably take the points. I think it's going to be a very close one there in Como. This might be Alabama's toughest test of the entire season, especially when you take into account the 2 teams they've faced the last 2 weeks and going on the road to Georgia, coming back and playing against a quality Vanderbilt team at home, and now having to go on the road again against a top 15 outfit in the Missouri Tigers. I'll take the Tide, but I think it'll be close. We'll go next to 12 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. This is where Pitt travels to Tallahassee, take on the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State about a 9.5-point favorite right now. Both teams enter with identical 3-2 records. Florida State, a team that beat a top 10 team in the first game of the season. They had major aspirations. They've been reeling a bit. Back-to-back conference losses, the double overtime heartbreaker to Virginia, hard-fought defeat at the hands of rival Miami, have left the Seminoles staring at a possible 0-3 start in ACC play, one that we would not have anticipated at least a few weeks ago. Meanwhile, Pitt traveling to Tallahassee and kind of rejuvenated after their season. Look, Pat Narduzzi had a season on the brink, made a bold decision and decided to change quarterbacks, and the move that paid immediate dividends in going out and handling Boston College 48-7. Now, this quarterback, Mason Heinschel, he's this kind of the story of what went down last week. It had been Eli Holstein for quite a while, started the year, had a lot of really good moments there in the first couple games that all of a sudden started to make some mistakes. He gets benched. They turn to an 18-year-old true freshman who lights it up in his first game. Stunning success. He threw for 323 yards and 4 touchdowns while completing 30 of 41 against BC. So massive, but can that now carry over to what should be an angry and desperate Florida State team led by Thomas Castellanos? True game changer. And he's capable of breaking you down on every single play with not just his arm, but also his legs. Against a really good Miami defense, he went for 272 through the air, added 57 on the ground. He does, however, occasionally make some mistakes. He's thrown 5 picks this year, including 2 costly interceptions against Miami that were pivotal in the loss. Question 1, can Pitt's passing attack win against Florida State's secondary? The Panthers have a trio of really dangerous receivers. Raphael Williams, you have a deep threat in Kataris Hicks. You also have Kenny Johnson, who's coming off a career-high 9-catch, 115-yard performance. They are going to potentially be without Desmond Reed who suffered a lower body ankle injury. He's been out a couple of games now, so if he's out again, it puts more pressure on the passing game to perform in this matchup. Question number 2, can Florida State's offensive line take advantage of Pitt's banged up defensive line? Which, if you look at Florida State's O-line, they've created some big opportunities in the run game from time to time. And this will be big if they can create against a defensive line that, while looking good statistically, they are dealing with some challenges from an injury standpoint. They've lost a couple defensive ends. You got another lineman in Jaden Moore, who's listed as questionable. We'll see whether or not those guys can all go. Watch the injury report here closely. If Pitt's D-line is at less than 100%, that would lead me even more in favor of the Florida State Seminoles at this point. And then question number 3, how will Pitt's linebackers handle Thomas Castellanos' legs? Like, he's a pocket passer at one moment, and then boom, he becomes the most dangerous guy on the field with the ball in his hands. Puts a lot of pressure at the second level of Pitt's defense. But the good news is they have a first-team All-American there at linebacker in Kyle Lewis. He's the real deal and can do a lot of different things. I would anticipate him having a heavy workload accounting for what Thomas Castellanos might do with his legs. So these linebackers, they'll be tasked with maintaining discipline, kind of containing Thomas Castellanos in the pocket, and acting as spies to prevent him from breaking loose on some drive extending runs. I'm taking Florida State in a big bounce back here. I think Pitt is a team that, while last week looked incredible, I think Florida State still remains very real. I think they get this done. I'd lay the points with the Noles at home. Moving on to one of the biggest games of the college football season so far, the 7th-ranked Indiana Hoosiers head to Eugene, Oregon to take on the Oregon Ducks. They are ranked 3rd. It's 3:30 Eastern time on CBS. Top 10 showdown in Autzen Stadium, and what more do you want? Both teams arrive at 5-0. You got on one side who's got just that unapologetic confidence and just a simple, offensive system. We do what we do. We're going to be more physical. We're going to win the line of scrimmage. We got great quarterback play, and we got a great defense. I just love Kurt Cignetti, but I also love Dan Lanning. One of my favorite coach matchups of the entire weekend. Dan Lanning at Oregon currently holds the highest winning percentage in program history at 870. That surpassed even the legendary Chip Kelly. And it's the best quarterback matchup of the weekend. If you love quarterback play, this is the game for you. We'll start with Indiana's Fernando Mendoza. Been spectacular so far this year. Over 1,200 yards, 16-1 touchdown to interception ratio. His passer rating's just south of 200 while completing 73% of his passes. He's also pretty athletic too. He can keep you honest with his legs. Not a guy that's going to kill you with his legs, but if you get too aggressive rushing the quarterback, Mendoza can make you pay. He's got an elite set of wide receivers on the outside to rely on as well. On the other side is Dante Moore. So calm, just such remarkable poise for a guy that is relatively young in his development. He plays like a seasoned veteran, and he serves as a kind of a point guard to this high-powered attack. He's been flawless for the most part for the Ducks from the beginning of the season. Just under 75% completion, over 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 183.5. A couple impactful injuries in this game. Indiana Hoosiers, D'Angelo Pond, their corner. It's sounding like he's going to be ready to go. It's sounding like he's going to play, but he's an All-American and a playmaker on the outside. So having him back and at least close to 100% would be significant. His absence, or if he's at less than 100%, could be a huge blow to the secondary that needs his presence there on the perimeter. And then for the Oregon Ducks, Kenyon Sadiq, minor injury against Penn State. I don't think it'll be a big deal. I think he'll be fine, but he's a key part of this offense, a real matchup nightmare. And if for whatever reason he's at less than 100%, even if he goes, you still got to account for him. But if he's at less than 100%, that could be a little bit of an issue as well. So just be mindful. 2 All-American contenders that are a little bit banged up heading into this matchup. And hey, you need all hands on deck in a game like this. Question number 1. Can Indiana's rushing attack continue its performance against Oregon's front 7? This is probably the key battle of the game. And Indiana has a really neat offensive scheme. They have a deep and talented backfield. They got Roman Hemby, Kalen Black. Both guys have gone for nearly 350. Hemby has gone for 350. Kalen Black, 344. And a goal line specialist, short yardage specialist in Kobe Martin, who's got 222 and 4 touchdowns. And what's amazing is this offense, the offensive line, by the way, really good as well. They're averaging nearly 6 yards per carry. And this is an Oregon front that has a lot of really good playmakers. They really do. This is a very talented group up front for sure. I do think this might be a slight step up with what they've seen up to this point. That's no disrespect to Penn State. I think Penn State's a good football team. I think their offensive line's a good group for the most part. I think Indiana's better. So this will be a level of physicality that I don't know if Oregon has faced just yet. And Oregon's run defense is very, very solid. They're top 50 nationally, but they haven't faced a team that is this committed to trying to create an advantage on the ground. If you look at Indiana, they run the ball 62, 63% of the time. So this matchup will determine whether or not Indiana can kind of control the tempo of the game. I think if you look at Indiana, their goal going into it, probably try to run the ball 40 plus times. If you can run the ball 40 plus times, accumulate, 200 rushing yards in this game, you can dominate time of possession, and then you can keep that incredible Oregon offense on the sideline, which should be the number one priority for Curt Cignetti and this Hoosiers team. Question number 2, can Oregon's passing game attack Indiana's secondary? Now, Dante Moore, ruthlessly efficient. I mean, just amazing how he stands back there and distributes the ball over the place. The offensive line so far has been outstanding when it comes to pass protection. He's got really dangerous weapons on the outside. Decorium Moore is as good as any freshman as there is in the country. You got a veteran in Gary Bryant who is so reliable. He's going to be always a huge factor in the plan as well. They're going against an Indiana secondary that is among the best in the country when it comes to creating turnovers. You got safeties that can get very involved with Farrell and Lewis Moore. You also have a unit that does a really good job of baiting quarterbacks into making mistakes. They do a great job disguising coverages, and they do have a tendency to confuse even the most experienced quarterbacks. But Dante Moore, like we talked about early, his poise is massive. He has not been fooled very often this year. He knows where to go with the football. He's very decisive. And when things do go a little haywire, it hasn't bothered him yet. So he's going to have to be great with his eyes because this is a good defensive scheme that can create some confusion. I referenced D'Angelo Pons. If he's at less than 100%, that could be a bit of a problem on the outside matching up against this outstanding wide receiver core. Question number 3, can Oregon's defensive pressure affect Fernando Mendoza? This might be one of the bigger storylines throughout the game is just how good Fernando Mendoza's been. And Dan Lanning, and Tosh Lupoy, their defensive brain trust, they do an incredible job on a week-to-week basis in creating deception, creating confusion, pressuring without really pressuring, and what we call simulated pressures, where they only rush 4 guys, but it's with a linebacker and you drop a defensive end. And if you have a quarterback that is pretty aggressive in his own right, he can occasionally make the wrong decision from pre-snap to post-snap. And Fernando Mendoza's primary issue is maybe at times he becomes a little bit impatient. Maybe he tries to do a little too much. And there are times, too, when he's left the pocket maybe a bit prematurely when the first read isn't there. So Dan Lanning will, no doubt, he's going to have a game plan that will be designed to kind of create and exploit this tendency. He'll show blitz and then drop 8 in coverage. And then he'll look like he's in drop 8 coverage and bring a delayed pressure. And at that point, Mendoza is already committed to throwing the ball where he's going to throw the ball. Mendoza's a bit of a gunslinger, and I absolutely love that. And if he can demonstrate patience and kind of take the checkdowns and diagnose what's coming, then that would be big to kind of get Dan Lanning out of being over-aggressive at times in a game like this. And then Indiana can sustain some drives and things like that. But if Mendoza gets a little greedy, that could lead to a game-changing turnover that Oregon's defense is designed to create. Question number 4, can Indiana's havoc create problems for Oregon's offensive line? This is a really disruptive scheme. Bryant Haynes, their defensive coordinator, does an amazing job. And right now, they are top 4 in the country when it comes to defensive efficiency. They've been outstanding in the red zone. They've been great on third down. And they can get after you and affect the quarterback. But the defensive line, they're going to have their hands full because it's a really good offensive line. You got Mikhail Kamara, Kellen Wyatt coming off the edge, Tyreek Tucker, and Jose Wheeler on the inside. This Indiana defensive line has to be disruptive in this game for them to limit Oregon's offense. If their defensive line doesn't play out of their mind, it's going to be tough sledding for sure, especially knowing the talented running backs that Oregon has at their disposal, 2-3 deep at that position that can take over the game and break a big one if you are not sound defensively. I'm going to take Oregon in this game, but I think it's going to be close. I'll take the points. I think this has a chance to be a very high-scoring game. I like both offenses an awful lot. I like both quarterbacks an awful lot. I love the personnel at wide receiver for both teams. And I do think the defense, because of their aggressiveness, could be maybe susceptible to a couple big plays created. So I'll take Oregon. I'll take the points. And I think it'll be a high-scoring affair. We'll go next to the Red River Rivalry. The 6th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners traveling to Dallas to take on the Texas Longhorns, 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. This is the 121st edition of one of my favorite rivalries in the sport, the Red River Rivalry. 6th-ranked Sooners enter into the Cotton Bowl with an undefeated 5-0 record, an elite defense. That's kind of what you need to know about them. If you know nothing else about Oklahoma, know that their defense is truly elite, at worst, a top 3 unit in all of college football. The Texas Longhorns, many people thought they were the number 1 team in the country. I thought they were the number 1 team in the country. Preseason number 1, but they've stumbled now to a 3-2 record. They've now fallen all the way out of the AP poll after a very disappointing loss last week at the hands of the Florida Gators. Brent Venables for Oklahoma in head-to-head matchups against Steve Sarkisian. He's 2-1. We know Steve Sarkisian's been really good in his time at Texas, and he has a career head coaching record of 87-54. The quarterback matchup is a fascinating one. You have Michael Hawkins. More than likely, Michael Hawkins is probably what I should say, because there is a little bit of buzz about John Mateer desperately trying to play in this game. Who can blame him? He's a young man from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You are from that area. You now get a chance to potentially play in the Red River Rivalry. I mean, what more could you want? So who can blame John Mateer? If he can play, that'd be miraculous. It'd be amazing. If he can't, and we're going to operate under the assumption that he can't right now, it will be Michael Hawkins Jr. thrust into the spotlight, the broken hand to Mateer, who underwent surgery. We'll keep an eye on whether or not Mateer can go. Like I said, I think it's an outside chance, but never say never for a guy that's that tough and that competitive. As far as Hawkins is concerned, he did start 4 games last year. He did start this game last year, so he does have some experience in this unique environment. In his lone start this year, that was against Kent State, they won 44-0. I thought he was pretty efficient for the most part. I thought he ran the ball pretty well, did have a score on the ground. He was 14-24 for 162, did have 3 touchdowns through the air, but if you watch the accuracy, it wasn't great. There were some inconsistencies, a little bit of a mixed bag, but the big thing is that he did not commit a turnover. That's huge. You'll understand why here in just a minute. On the other side, it's Arch Manning for the Texas Longhorns. He is a legitimate dual threat weapon, and through 5 games, everyone has been scrutinizing this young man's performance. Rightfully, he was by far the Heisman favorite coming into the season. Everyone expected him to be the best quarterback in the country. I thought he had a chance to really accelerate to the top of the sport. However, if you look at my preseason top 10 quarterbacks, I did not have him in the top 10. I think he was kind of had to prove it. And so far, he hasn't just yet. But I do think last week, even though he had a couple interceptions, was a significant step forward in the right direction. Against Florida, he was good. And I know people will tell you otherwise, but under the duress that he was under, it could have been bad, and it wasn't. He gave his team a chance, did have a couple misses, but that was by far his best game as a starting quarterback against quality competition. The 5 interceptions are a little bit of an issue. He's got to be smart with the football in this game, especially in the event in which Michael Hawkins is in there at quarterback for the Sooners, because it might be tough for the Sooners to manufacture a lot of points if they are a bit one-dimensional, because Michael Hawkins is a little bit erratic throwing the football. One other aspect of Arch Manning's game, the mobility. Right now, he is leading the Texas Longhorns with 160 yards on the ground, which is critical given the offensive line struggles up to this point. All that said, I do think things are looking up for Arch Manning as they head into this performance, but he's going to need some help for sure from his offensive line. Impactful injuries. We've already referenced John Mateer. For Oklahoma, we also have Keontez Lewis, who had a really scary injury last week against Kent State, kind of collided with that wall. It sounds like things are promising for the long term, but the status for Saturday is uncertain at this point. And then for Texas, a couple question marks at running back. Trey Wisner re-injured his hamstring against Florida. We'll see whether or not he can somehow find his way back onto the field. And then CJ Baxter suffered a hamstring leg injury in week 3. So the top 2 running backs being out has been forcing them to kind of lean towards Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark there at the running back spot. And then, of course, using Arch Manning's legs as well. And then Malik Muhammad, maybe their best corner. His status a little uncertain right now, but he's a top cover corner against any opponent. So if he is, for whatever reason, unavailable, that could be significant as well. So take a peek at the injury report, mostly because of Mateer, but other guys that could be impactful in this game as well. Question number 1. Can Texas's O-line contain Oklahoma's defensive front? This is probably the biggest mismatch in the game as of this moment, because Oklahoma's defensive front is dynamic, they are deep, they are aggressive, and they can take over the game. You have an elite edge rusher on the end of the line of scrimmage in R. Mason Thomas. You have very disruptive interior players like David Stone and Jaden Jackson and a handful of others. They probably go 5 deep at defensive tackle. All those guys are really, really good. And this Texas offensive line got pushed around badly last week. The tackles struggled some, the internals struggled some, the guards struggled as well. The Sooners can generate pressure at a rate unlike most teams in the country. One of the highest pressure rates in all of college football. And this offensive line really did not look good last week. So far, Oklahoma is sacking the opposing quarterback 15% of the time. That is first in the FBS. They have 21 sacks. It's the second most in college football. So that is going to be very interesting. Does Brent Venables and their scheme, did they decide to blitz, which he loves to do, or do they just let their defensive line tee off? Because if they are just letting their defensive line tee off, then that could be a big problem, because you still have 7 in coverage against 4 pass rushers, 5 blockers. That's bad from a number standpoint if you are Texas and trying to create advantages. Question number 2, can Oklahoma's rushing attack find success against Texas's front 7? Now, the passing game with the backup quarterback, probably a little compromised, right? So that means Oklahoma has to find a way to run the football. This will be a very tough test, because you're running directly into one of the best linebackers in the country in Anthony Hill. He'll be off the ball. And if you look at Oklahoma's rushing attack so far this year, they're 97th in yards per game. They're 106th in yards per rush. Now, I like their 1-2 punch at running back with Torrey Blaylock, who's got some home run hitting potential. He's a freshman, but he's a really good back. And then transfer Jaden Knott, who has not gotten off to the start that we anticipated, but probably anticipating him having more of a role as the season goes along. You're going against a Texas run defense that's top 12 in the country. They allow just 80 yards a game. But if you look at the physicality, if Oklahoma can match the physicality, that'd be big. But if you look at Michael Hawkins Jr. in particular, he is a dynamic run threat as well, which means Anthony Hill, who we referenced a moment ago, he might be forced to spy an awful lot. So if they can get Michael Hawkins in obvious passing situations, that would be big, because if they get there, here comes the pass rush off the edge. With Ethan Burke, Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, these guys can flat out get after you. So it's very important for Texas to stop the run, and it's also very important for Oklahoma to establish the run to stay out of those 3rd and longs. Question number 3, can Oklahoma's passing attack manufacture something against Texas's secondary? This is a really good and talented group of wide receivers. Deion Burks, Isaiah Satania, Jaron Kanik, who I think is a matchup problem there at tight end. He's got great feel for zone, but he can also beat man. You also have Michael Hawkins, though, whose accuracy from time to time is a little bit off the mark. It's to be expected. He's a young player. So he's not going to be as accurate as a Mateer. He's not going to be as accurate as some of the veterans we see across the country. He's going to have some big moments, though, and he has at times in the past, best game last year probably against Auburn, he has at times in the past hit some big plays downfield. If he could do so in this game, that'd be huge for Oklahoma. Question number 4, who wins the turnover battle? This, to me, is the biggest factor in the game. And given Oklahoma's offensive limitations right now, the fact that Texas has struggled up front along the offensive line, I think the team that wins the turnover margin will almost certainly win the game. And Texas has been somewhat turnover prone. They have 5 interceptions from Arch. They have 6 turnovers overall. But Oklahoma, for as good as they've been defensively, they have not forced a lot of turnovers this year. They have just 2. They both came last week against Kent State. That's bottom 5 in the FBS. Texas, on the other side, has been really good at turning people over for the last 2 years. They've got 9 so far this season. That's 22nd. So if they can have that takeaway-minded defense capitalize on a backup quarterback with some erratic accuracy from time to time, or if Oklahoma can stay true to a conservative game plan and play mistake-free football, that could be really big in this game. So turnovers, probably the biggest indicator of who's going to win this one because both offenses might have their hands full. I think this is a chance to be a very low-scoring game. I'm taking the Texas Longhorns. I think they bounce back. And while right now, I don't really trust Texas's offense. I don't. I do, however, think the arrow is pointing up for their quarterback. I trust Texas's offense still a little more than I trust Oklahoma's offense right now. And then on defense, I trust Oklahoma's defense more, but the gap between Oklahoma's defense and Texas defense is not quite as wide. The best play of the weekend might be the under in this game. I don't see either team really opening it up that much. They're both great defenses. They both have offenses that have been a bit shaky. So how risky does either coach want to be? I think this game will be played close to the vest. I think it'll be a lot of field position. I think it'll be capitalizing on mistakes. I'll take the Longhorns in what should be a low-scoring game. Up next is the NC State Wolfpack, traveling to South Bend, Indiana. This game's 3:30 Eastern time on Peacock. On one side, you got Dave Doran, grizzled veteran, architect of a program that's defined by grit and consistency. After a disappointing season last year, they're off to a decent start at 4-2 here in 2025. On the other side is Marcus Freeman, who has really done a great job here over the last few years for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Quarterback matchup, the 2 CJs. CJ Bailey there for NC State. The first half of this 2025 season, he's been really good. Way up there in completion percentage, over 1,600 yards in the air, 4 picks, which is notable, but 13 touchdowns. He's been pretty good. He has taken the step necessary to give NC State a chance. And CJ Carr, a few freshmen have been more impressive than him this year. He's been really good, especially when you take into account how early in the season Notre Dame was struggling on defense. They had to get into some track meets. He's been outstanding. He also averages over 10 yards an attempt. So he's creating big plays. It's exactly what you want to see from him as they move forward. Question 1, can Notre Dame's rushing attack get after NC State's front seven? It's a powerful rushing attack spearheaded by what might be the best duo of running backs in the country in Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. We know what Love is. Steady, physical, elite, open field speed. But Price is also very, very capable. These two guys don't take a backseat to pretty much anybody. And the entire Irish offense as a whole, only 182 rushing yards per game, but they're averaging over 5.2 yards per carry. So maybe not as much on the ground as you would love, but they've been very efficient when they do hand it off. Meanwhile, the Wolfpack, they're 93rd nationally. They're giving up 4.4 yards per carry. So they also might be without some pieces in the front seven of the defense too. So take a peek at the injury report, because if NC State's a little banged up, it'll be even more difficult to contain these two running backs. Question 2, can NC State's passing attack take advantage of an improving secondary? CJ Bailey has got a talented and diverse group of pass catchers, and they can challenge the secondary at all 3 levels. You got Terrell Anderson, who's a legitimate deep threat. He averages 19 yards per catch. You got Justin Jolie, the tight end, who's a reliable security blanket, can work the middle, but also is pretty good in the catch and runs. You also have a couple of complementary receivers in Keenan Jackson, Noah Rogers. They have quality depth, and they can play the game well if called upon. So it's, I think, a very narrow path to victory for NC State. So they're going to have to do the following. They need some time-consuming drives. They need 15-play drives, 75 yards, that take 8 minutes off the clock. They need CJ Bailey to complete a bunch of quick and accurate passes. They got to convert really well on 3rd down. And then defensively, they have to stack the box and then hope they can win their matchups outside against Notre Dame's wide receivers. I'm taking Notre Dame in this game. I'd lay the points. I think the Irish are for real. We'll move next to a game that is a fascinating one with a resurgent Florida Gators football team taking on the 5th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies. This game will be 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Florida just 2-3, 1-1 in the SEC, but got back on track in the big way last week with the 29-21 upset over then number 9 Texas. The Aggies, meanwhile, 2-0 in the SEC, 5-0 overall, and they get the home field behind them. Kyle Field, one of the toughest places in college football to play. But Florida, they just snapped that 3-game losing streak. And temporarily, they've quieted the speculation about Billy Napier and the job security and things like that. But Elko, so far, at A&M, has been a well-oiled machine up to this point. The signal caller showdown here features DJ Lagway, who has been going through a bit of a roller coaster of a season. Through 5 games, the numbers are not remarkable. The 7 picks are what stand out the most. And prior to the Texas game, he looked pretty rusty. I mean, he had an off-season injury to his shoulder. He's had time spent in a walking boot with a calf injury, a lower body injury. But against the Longhorns, he was at his very best, maybe the best performance of his career. Threw for 289, a couple touchdowns, did have a pick. But this is a big breakthrough and kind of got us back to thinking about DJ Lagway in the way we thought we'd be thinking about DJ Lagway here in the early part of the season. He's the real deal when he's on his A game. And last week he was on his A game. Can it carry over? Marcel Reed on the other side. He was at times early in his career kind of a run-first quarterback, but he has really kind of shed that label to an extent and become really well-rounded and pretty efficient. He still has elite speed. He is constantly a threat in the open field to break you down with his legs. Through 5 games, thrown for over 1,250 yards, 11-3 touchdown to interception ratio. And he's the catalyst for the Aggie offense that right now is among the nation's elite in total yardage and efficiency. Still, though, that threat of him taking off and running is real. 119 rushing yards this year, does have a touchdown, and he has proven to take a big step as an effective pocket passer. Injuries in this one, Florida, a little bit still banged up along the defensive line, thought it'd be huge in this game last week against Texas. It wasn't. They had quality depth. But Caleb Banks, LJ McCray up front defensively, keep an eye on those guys. If they are, for whatever reason, back, that's going to make life even more difficult for the Texas A&M Aggies. They also have a couple guys in the back end that have been sidelined as well with Aaron Gates and Dijon Johnson. A&M, big one here would be Scooby Williams. He's got an ankle injury. Scooby Williams has been out for a couple weeks. Bryce Anderson also injured in that game against Notre Dame. Hope if he gets back, by the way, Anderson being back, that would be amazing. But we'll see about him. Williams is a dynamic playmaker too. So we'll see exactly what things look like for the Aggies when it comes to game time and see if those guys can officially go. Question number 1, how will A&M's passing attack fare against Florida's secondary? Look, Texas A&M has one of the most dynamic passing attacks in the country. They have a super talented 1-2 punch at wide receiver. Mario Craver so far, 557 yards this year. He's probably been one of, if not the best receivers in the SEC. One of, if not the best receiver in the country from a production standpoint up to this point. Mario Craver's the real deal. It's not huge, but the catch and run is off the charts good. But not to be overshadowed is KC Concepcion, who's over 400 yards himself. And right now, Marcel Reed's averaging 8.7 yards per attempt. So they've been efficient, and these guys do a great job after the catch. And they're going against a Florida secondary that has been a little bit banged up, but played pretty well against the Texas Longhorns last week. We'll go next to question number 2. How will Florida's offensive line hold up against A&M's defensive front? The Florida's offensive line was, for the most part, excellent in the game against Texas. They created some opportunities in the run game for Jaden Baugh, who went for over 100. They provided a fairly clean pocket for DJ Lagway. There were times in which they got beat, but Texas got really good pass rush, so it's understandable. I thought the offensive line, though, given the matchup, played very, very well. And they're going against a really big test in Texas A&M's defensive front. They're 4th in the country in sack percentage. So if Florida's line can replicate its performance and kind of neutralize Aggie's pass rush, it will give Lagway the time he needs to operate and to find his playmakers downfield. But if A&M wins this battle, they could force Lagway into hurried, off-balance throws that have led to turnovers throughout the season. Question number 3, what will be A&M's plan for Dallas Wilson? Look, the college debut of freshman sensation Dallas Wilson against Texas was ridiculous. The stat line was 6 for 111, a couple touchdowns. It only tells part of the story. Look, he's 6'3", 215 pounds, He's physical. He's got a big play threat at any point. He's out there on the perimeter. This is the guy that Florida's offense has been desperately missing, and he presents a challenge to this A&M defense. If he can continue to win those contested catches, if he can create some explosive plays downfield, that could be the key to kind of unlocking Florida's offense and preventing the Aggies from focusing too much attention on stopping the run game with Jaden Baugh. Question 4, can Florida's pass rush maintain their high-level performance? They had 3 sacks in their first 4 games, and the defensive front came alive against Texas. Not only did they sack Arch Manning 6 times, but they disrupted the drop back on countless occasions in last week's performance. So can that performance be sustained? Question number 5, how much of this game will be determined on third down? If it is, it's a huge advantage in favor of both defenses because A&M's defense is one of the nation's best. Opponents right now are converting just over 22% of their attempts. That's top 5. Florida allows just under 32% conversions, which is top 30. However, both offenses have struggled so far on the money down. Florida's offense has been among the worst in the country in these situations, under 35% conversion rate at 112. A&M converts even less, they're 114. So whoever operates better on third down has a really good chance of winning the game. I take the points in this game. I think Florida kind of bloody Texas A&M's nose, but A&M will hold up better in the trenches than Texas did. Aggies win, Florida covers, in what I think will be a very physical football game there in Kyle Field. We'll go next to 7:30 Eastern time on Fox when Kansas takes on the 9th-ranked Texas Tech Red Raiders. The Red Raiders are about a 2-touchdown favorite right now. This will be at Jones AT&T Stadium. You got Lance Leipold on one side, whose career is just a masterclass in sustainable program construction. His program was established at the D3 level, had a dynasty at Wisconsin Whitewater, won 6 national championships, and was 109-6 in his time there at Wisconsin Whitewater. On the other side, it's Joey McGuire, who has beaten Lance Leipold 2 times. He has 2-0 career against Leipold. They beat Kansas in Lubbock in 2022, and then they went to Lawrence in 23 and knocked off the Jayhawks there. Good quarterback matchup featuring Jalen Daniels, who is about as fun of a dual threat quarterback as you'll find in the country. 16-2 touchdown to interception ratio, nearly 1,500 through the air. But what makes him really special is his impact on the run game. He's their second leading rusher, has nearly 240 yards and a touchdown on 50 carries this year. And he's accounted for 17 of the team's 24 offensive touchdowns. It's 71%. That's among the highest rates in the country. Baron Morton, on the other side, through 5 games, has been very, very efficient. Over 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 picks, really good passer rating. But compared to Daniels, he's more of a pocket passer. He has negative yards rushing this year. So keep an eye on him. They also have a really quality backup in Will Hammond. So if for whatever reason Morton is not effective, or if he's at less than 100% from the ankle injury or the concussion or whatever it was a couple weeks ago, if he's not ready to go, they're going to be just fine with the backup quarterback. One injury in this game to keep an eye on is Kansas's running back Daniel Highshaw, a really important piece to this running back rotation. As of this moment, he's questionable. So his absence would potentially limit the depth and put a heavier burden on LaShawn Williams, who's the other running back that they use in their 1-2 punch against a really stout defensive front for the Red Raiders. Question 1, can Kansas run the football against Texas Tech's defense? Texas Tech's defense is truly elite, especially against the run. They're allowing just 65 yards a game. That's second in the FBS. Now, they completely erase, for the most part, the opponent's rushing attack and force them into obvious and predictable passing situations where they can tee off. In Kansas, they rely on this rushing attack heavily. 173 yards a game. They got to create some balance on the ground. If the Jayhawks cannot establish a credible run threat, and the offense will become one-dimensional, and that's when that pass rush led by David Bailey, who has 6 sacks, can tee off against Jalen Daniels. Question 2, can Texas Tech's passing offense expose Kansas's secondary? The Red Raiders offense, they're an aerial juggernaut, over 360 a game. They'll be facing a Kansas defense that has shown some susceptibility through the air. They're just 67th in passing yards allowed, and they're 100th in opponent completion percentage, allowing 65%. Is a deep receiving core. Koi Eakin will be really difficult to contain. They also have quality tight ends. So you know that this passing attack is probably licking their chops against a secondary that has had some injury concerns and some depth issues and some challenges covering the opponent's wide receivers. Question number 3, can Kansas turn Texas Tech over? That is the one thing that Kansas, I think, can do a really good job of, and it's a direct reflection on how Lance Leipold has won games for a very long time. They have just 4 turnovers this year. That's among the best in the sport. They've forced 7. That's not a ton. It's 50th. However, Texas Tech on the other side, they forced 12 turnovers this year. So it's top 3 in the FBS. I'll take Texas Tech, and I'll lay the points in this matchup there in Lubbock. We'll go next to the Deep South oldest rivalry, where the 10th ranked Georgia Bulldogs travel to the Plains to take on the Auburn Tigers. It's going to be 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. Georgia's 4-1 in the SEC. They're 2-1. They enter as legitimate national championship contender every single year. They have had to deal with some challenges with consistency. They do have a couple injuries. There are some things to keep an eye on with Georgia in this game. And on the other side, it's the Auburn Tigers. They've lost 2 straight in the SEC. They're coming off a bye. They are desperate to get a signature victory for Hugh Freeze after 2 very hard-fought road losses to top 10 opponents in Auburn, going to Oklahoma and losing, and going to College Station and losing to the Texas A&M Aggies. Kirby Smart, one of the best in the country, 2 national championships, 6 SEC East titles, 109-20 overall. Hugh Freeze has actually played and beaten Georgia in the past. This was in 2016. It was Kirby Smart's first year at Georgia. In that game, when Freeze was at home, he was at Ole Miss at the time. They beat Georgia 45-14. That was actually Kirby Smart's first career loss as the Bulldogs head coach, but the Georgia Bulldogs have won the last 2 meetings between these 2 head coaches. The quarterback matchup pits Gunnar Stockton, who is a legitimate dual threat. His legs are a really, really good weapon, especially in the red zone and on critical third downs. He's rushed for nearly 200 yards and 5 touchdowns this year. And depending on the game, he might be the team's leading rusher. But as a passer, I think he's been very efficient as well. I think he's a better thrower than people realize. And while the numbers won't necessarily jump off the page, he's been pretty accurate. He can stretch the field, and he does have 6 touchdowns to his credit. He's also been clutch when throwing the football as well. Jackson Arnold on the other side, very dynamic as a dual threat weapon. Kirby Smart even acknowledged that. He said he runs like a running back and is a threat to score from anywhere on the field. The biggest development, though, in his game will be, can he be a little bit more willing to cut it loose as opposed to hold the ball for a really long time? That's been a problem here these last few games. However, because he's held the ball for quite a while, he has not turned the ball over. He has 0 picks this year, 5 touchdowns through the air, nearly 850 through the air, 192 and 5 touchdowns on the ground. Georgia does have a couple injuries that we need to be watching closely. The left tackle, Monroe Freeling, he had an ankle injury on the opening drive against Kentucky. It's not necessarily severe. It's not going to be an issue, hopefully, moving forward. Hopefully he can play in this game. He was not practicing earlier in the week, so keep an eye on the left tackle, Monroe Freeling. And on the right side, Ernest Green, he's had a lingering back issue that has caused him to miss multiple games. So they could potentially be without their starting tackles on both sides. They also have left guard Micah Morris, who's batting through a couple of ailments. He's continued to play, but just keep watching him because he's a super talented guy, really gifted young man. But if he's at less than 100%, that could have an impact on the team and the group as a whole. For Auburn, they'll be without Horatio Fields. He hurt his foot a couple weeks back. He was a dependable go-to guy and a possession receiver that was critical on third down. He is out. Jeremiah Cobb is the team's leading rusher. He's been dealing with a hand injury. It could kind of impact his role in the passing game. So we'll keep an eye on Cobb as well. Question number 1. Can Georgia establish the run? Georgia's offensive identity is always going to be built on a powerful and deep commitment to running the football. They have a really talented trio of backs, Chauncey Bowens, who has kind of become the go-to guy, Josh McCray, who's a hammer, wants to run and hit the hole extremely hard, and the explosive weapon that is Nate Frazier. He's still got a lot of juice out of the backfield, but ball security has been a bit of an issue for him. We haven't seen him get as many touches these last couple of weeks, at least based on what we thought he was going to get coming into the season. Don't sleep on Dwight Phillips, though, too. He's got a lot of juice there at running back as well. The home run hitting potential is always there with Georgia, but the numbers don't necessarily suggest a home run hitting outfit right now. They're kind of a churn and burn outfit. They're averaging less than 5 yards per carry, but they will be going against a defensive front that is all about stopping the run. Auburn's defense allows just over 2.5 per carry. That's the 8th best in college football. So the clash in the trenches will be huge in this matchup. If Georgia can find a way to generate consistent push, gain positive yardage on early downs, they can protect their quarterback and stick to their game plan. Question number 2. If not, if Georgia can't run the ball, can Georgia's offensive line win and hold up in pass protection? Look, Georgia's kind of built their identity around the run game. We know that they're a really good group, over 200 yards a game on the ground, but they haven't been able along the offensive line to create a lot of continuity. I mean, Kirby Smart even went as far as to say this group's kind of a mash unit. You know, got a guys that have been forced to different positions. They've used a bunch of different combinations. They've had a bunch of injuries. They've had guys in and out of the lineup. So continuity has been a challenge for the Bulldogs up to this point. And we already referenced it. Are they without Monroe Freeling potentially? Are they without Ernest Green potentially? That will force them to rely on some backups, some true freshmen in one of the most hostile environments in college football. And this is a defensive front that strength is acknowledged by pretty much anyone that's watched them. They're 12th in sacks. They have been praised by several coaches as being physical and fast and disruptive. They present you with a lot of problems. They can stop the run. They can rush the passer. So I would anticipate from Georgia a heavy dose of quick passes. They do a lot of those screen plays. They can move the pocket. And they got to probably get the ball out of Gunnar Stockton's hands quickly, depending on the availability of some of the guys up front. And the goal is kind of neutralize Auburn's pass rush without giving it time to arrive. Question number 3, will Auburn be committed to the run game? Look, Auburn has good personnel and can run the football. The guy that might be their best weapon running the ball is Jackson Arnold, their quarterback. I think he needs 10 designed carries in this game. Their top running back, Jeremiah Cobb, who does have home run hitting potential, he probably needs 15. Damari Alston, who's a really good Robin to Jeremiah Cobb's Batman, he needs to have 10. You also factor in 3 to 5 scrambles for Arnold in this game. Therefore, you're looking at 35 to 40 runs. I think you have to do that. Because when you look at the challenges that Auburn has had this year offensively, they've come in 3rd and long situations, obvious passing situations. If they can run the ball and stay committed to the run on 1st and 2nd down, get into 3rd and manageable, that's big for their offense to try to develop some rhythm in this matchup. Question number 4, will Auburn's talented wide receivers create explosives against Georgia's secondary? Now, while Auburn's passing numbers are not great, it's not due to a lack of talent on the perimeter. They have one of the receiving cores in all of college football that most teams would gladly trade for. Cam Coleman is big and physically imposing on the outside, always capable of winning one-on-one situations if he gets a one-on-one situation throughout the game. Eric Singleton there in the slot, a really good playmaker, extremely fast. He can get behind the defense at any point. The offensive struggles have been more about protection and accuracy issues from Jackson Arnold. They've only manufactured 9 explosive plays. Those are throws that have gone for 20 plus yards this year. That's 120th. You have to do that against Georgia, because if you look at where Georgia has at times been vulnerable, not necessarily the last 2 weeks, they have given up some big plays downfield. Jackson Arnold and this wide receiver core, they have to create them in this matchup. Question number 5, what will win? A Georgia pass rush that's been MIA, or the Auburn offensive line / quarterback that's been responsible for a bunch of sacks? Georgia has 7 sacks this year. That is 115th in the FBS. Only one of those sacks came from a defensive lineman. That's Ogboko, who's played just 48 snaps this year. The rest have come from blitzing linebackers. But beyond the sack numbers, they've hit the quarterback on just 25% of their defensive snaps. That's 133rd in the FBS. Meanwhile, Auburn, nobody's been sacked more than Auburn this year, partly because of the offensive line, partly because of Jackson Arnold's unwillingness to cut it loose when he probably should. That's the most sacks given up in college football this season. I will not make a pick on this game. I'll be on the call alongside Sean McDonough and Molly McGrath from Auburn, 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. This one feels like the Rose Bowl, doesn't it? It really does. But now it's a conference game. It's the Big Ten, where the 15th ranked Michigan Wolverines will travel to the Coliseum to to take on the USC Trojans. SC about a 2.5-point favorite. This game is 7:30 Eastern time on NBC. Michigan's 4-1. USC is 4-1. Both programs couldn't be much more different outside of their record so far this year. We know what Sharon Moore wants to be. They want to be a smash mouth outfit with a dominant rushing attack that will control the tempo of the game, grind down USC, grind down their defense, and most importantly, limit the amount of total possessions that Lincoln Riley's offense has to maneuver with. Whereas the other side for Lincoln Riley, they want to basically do the exact opposite. They want to score quickly. They want to manufacture explosive plays. They want to leverage their offensive firepower to build an early multi-score lead that will force Michigan to abandon its run-first comfort zone and place the game on the shoulders of their outstanding true freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood. Speaking of Bryce Underwood, let's go to the quarterback matchup. Underwood, in his first 5 games, has been a freshman. There have been some incredible moments of brilliance. There's also been a few moments in which there's been some inconsistencies. Overall, the passing stats are pretty modest, under 60%, just 3 passing touchdowns through 5 games, kind of underwhelming. But his mobility has made him very dynamic. 181 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns this season. On the other side, it's Jaden Mayava, who has evolved into the quintessential Lincoln Riley quarterback. He's poised, he's accurate, he's efficient. He has showcased so far complete mastery of this complex offensive system. He's operating right now as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Through 5 games, he ranks in the top 5 nationally in passing yards, yards per attempt, passer rating, what have you. Most impressively, he's been very, very careful with the football as well. Just 11 touchdowns against just 1 interception. So, been very, very good at quarterback, have the Trojans. As far as injuries are concerned, the Wolverines are expected to be without their starting left guard, Giovanni El Hadi, which could be significant. You might also have some injuries to the right guard, Brady Norton. So keep an eye on those for Michigan. Their absence or them being at less than 100% could be significant in this game. Then for SC, Killian O'Connor, their center, probably out. Elijah Page, their left tackle, a little questionable right now. Jacoby Lane, a matchup nightmare on the outside, has dealt with some injuries as well. So there are some injury issues on both sides that are potentially significant. So check the injury report close to game time to figure out who exactly is ready to go. Question number 1, can USC stop the run? You look at the Wolverines, you know what they are. They're a top 13 rushing offense. They average 240 on the ground a game. They are ridiculously efficient when they run. They're top 6 in the country, over 6 per carry. This ground game is complemented naturally by what they do defensively as well. And they do have home run hitting potential with Justice Haynes. I mean, we've seen that time and time again throughout the year. All it takes is a small little seam and he could be out the gate. Now, this USC run defense, they're improved. They're solid, but they're somewhat unspectacular against the run. Part of their numbers are buoyed by a tremendous pass rush. More on that here in just a minute. Their defense allows 3.5 per carry. Number 2, if they can run the football, or if they can't run the football, can Michigan's passing attack exploit USC's secondary? Now, Michigan's passing attack, one of the less productive units in the Big Ten. They're 94th nationally in yards per game. They're going against a USC pass defense that has really struggled at times this year. They are 111th in the country right now in giving up yards through the air. So the deciding factor in this matchup of struggling units will probably be the pass rush, right? We know that USC's defense excels at getting the quarterback. They're top 10 in sacks. And Michigan's offensive line, now they do have a couple injuries on the interior. They have not seen a pass rush of this caliber since the Oklahoma game. And in that game, they really weren't forced to drop back and throw the ball all over the yard. They tried to run the ball. They stayed pretty conservative in that matchup. So the pass rush for Oklahoma never really had a chance. SC's will, if they can hold up on the ground. So if SC can consistently generate pressure on Bryce Underwood, they will probably force a couple game-changing mistakes. But if Michigan's offensive line can provide Underwood with that clean pocket, he'll have opportunities to make plays against a vulnerable and mistake-prone USC secondary. Question number 3, can USC's passing attack create opportunities against Michigan's secondary? Michigan's secondary has been really good this year. Some would say it's been outstanding. Their numbers are fine. They're 46th in passing yards allowed a game. They're a little stingier on a per play basis, just 6 yards an attempt. They do have an elite wide receiver core that they're going to have to contend with in this game. Mekhi Lemon's a top wide receiver in college football, one of top 5, top 10, wherever you rank him, he's in that conversation. Assuming Jacoby Lane is back and healthy and capable, he's a matchup nightmare with great length on the perimeter. They also do a really good job with their tight ends. Like McCree has been very solid for them as well. So these are really good weapons. And if they have one-on-one opportunities, they could thrive regardless of who's covering them. Question number 4, will USC's rushing attack force Michigan to leave their defensive backs on islands? Look, Wayman Jordan's one of the better backs in the sport. Definitely a top 10 back. He can break the gain open. If he gets going, it might force Michigan's hand defensively. Because if Wayman Jordan gets going, then guess what? These safeties now have to get involved in run support, which means one-on-ones on the outside for this talented duo of wide receivers. Question number 5, how aggressive will Wink Martindale be? Because Michigan blitzes the opposing quarterbacks on 45% of their dropbacks. That's top 3 blitz rate in the entire country. And it works against most teams. It really does. But against Mayava and Lincoln Riley, it does feel like a bit of a dangerous recipe. This is a really elite defense from a statistical standpoint. But how aggressive do you want to be against a group that is designed to manufacture big plays? They do a great job of creating defensive mistakes with their tempo and deception. So we'll watch closely in this one. How aggressive will Wink Martindale play it? Will he continue with the same level of blitz rate that he's had up to this point? Or will he maybe dial back a little bit and allow his defensive line to tee off? Will be fascinating to see exactly what works, because I love the cat and mouse game here between Martindale and Lincoln Riley. I will take USC in this game. I actually think it's going to be a really high scoring and entertaining game. I just think SC's firepower is the real deal. It's a really good game last year, a really competitive game last year. Michigan made the plays at the end running the football to come out victorious. I think SC will completely sell it against the run, put all the pressure on Bryce Underwood and trying to create advantages outside. And I don't know if they'll be able to consistently take advantage of those matchups on the perimeter. I'll take the Trojans in what should be a high-scoring affair. South Carolina at LSU. This game's from Death Valley. LSU's a 9.5-point favorite, 7:45 Eastern time on the SEC network. It's nighttime in Death Valley. What more could you want? LSU's 4-1, looking to bounce back from their first loss of the season. South Carolina is 3-2, 1-2 in the SEC. It's been a tough schedule up to this point, kind of searching for that marquee win under Shane Beamer this year. Both teams are coming off a bye, which was big, to kind of rest, to heal, and to kind of get back on track. Shane Beamer's in his 5th year. Brian Kelly is trying to get the job done for LSU and win a national championship. Last year in this game, Brian Kelly's team overcame a 17-point first half deficit to knock off the Gamecocks there in Columbia, South Carolina. Lenora Sellers, super physically imposing dual threat quarterback. He's been a real playmaker at times, really good on the ground, rocket for an arm, elite athleticism, one of the most talented guys in all of college football. And on the other side is Garen Nussmeier, who has, I don't think, played as up to his potential this year. I mean, last year he threw for over 4,000. This year it's been a little bit up and down. He does have great ball placement, quick release, can improvise, can make plays off platform, but he has been a little bit banged up. Keep an eye on some of the injuries in this game. Offensive lineman Cason Henry, Gabe Dindy, defensive lineman for South Carolina, DQ Smith for South Carolina. Keep an eye on those guys. And then for LSU, Garrett Nussmeier has been the guy who's been dealing with an abdominal strain. Caden Durham, their starting running back, has an ankle injury. Their right tackle, Weston Davis, has been in concussion protocol. So the bye week came at a good time. Hopefully these two teams are as healthy as they can be going into this matchup. Question number 1, can South Carolina's O-line hold up against LSU's front? This is the most critical mismatch right now because the offensive line for South Carolina has really struggled. Their quarterbacks are getting hit a lot. Their quarterbacks have gotten sacked a lot. Now they face a reloaded and deep LSU front that has a ton of high-level performers, Jack Pyburn, Bernard Gooden, Patrick Payton. If South Carolina cannot protect Lenora Sellers, the offense will have a very difficult time sustaining drives. Question 2, can LSU's offensive line take the necessary step? They have not been great this year. As a result, they've struggled to create the desired balance, and South Carolina has a really disruptive front led by Dylan Stewart. And then question 3, can Garrett Nussmeier get back on track? I think he's due. I think this time off was significant. I'm hoping he's back to 100%, and as a result, his dynamic passing attack has a chance to take off. I'm taking LSU. I would, however, take the points in this game. I think South Carolina will play well on defense, and I do think they can move the ball with some of their quarterback run. Number 18, BYU travels to Tucson to take on the Arizona Wildcats. This game is 8 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. Kalani Sitake, they forged identity of physical dominance, methodical clock control, powerful rushing attack. And on the other side, it's Arizona. Second-year coach Brett Brennan. They have an explosive, quick-stride offense, paired with an aggressive, takeaway-oriented defense. Quarterback matchup, Bear Bachmeier, who in his first 5 games of his college career has been outstanding. The passing game was a little bit, questioned those first few weeks, but they came out throwing it downfield last week. Hopefully they can pick up where they left off. Noah Fafita on the other side through 5 games quietly has had a really nice season. 13-3 touchdown interception ratio, just under 65% of his passes have been caught. And he's coming off an outstanding performance against Oklahoma State, where he threw for 376 and 5 touchdowns in just 3 quarters. That tied a school record. Question number 1, how will Arizona stop BYU's rushing attack? Now, we know that BYU's identity is forged in the trenches. They have a dominant group up front, 230-plus yards a game on the ground, over 6 yards a carry, and their running back, LJ Martin, is among the most productive in the sport. Meanwhile, Arizona's run defense, they've been really good so far this year. They're allowing just under 100 yards per game. That's top 25, and about 3 yards per carry. Question 2, will BYU's secondary be able to contain the Arizona passing game? Arizona's offense is most dangerous when they're just airing it out. Man, Noah Fafita is really efficient. Is a pass defense that has been statistically elite, allowing just 147 yards a game. That's 12th. This matchup is heavily skewed by a bit of uncertainty right now with Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker, 2 linebackers, edge guys for BYU. If those guys can't go, generating a pass rush might be a little more challenging. They also have decent cover skills against tight ends and running backs. Question number 3, can Arizona turn BYU over? BYU had 1 turnover in their first 4 games. They had 3 last week against West Virginia. Arizona has intercepted 7 passes this year and has recovered 4 fumbles. They're a top 10 turnover team. I'm taking Arizona. I think they force a couple mistakes. I think they get the job done at home. Finally, 10 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. It's Arizona State traveling to Salt Lake to take on the Utah Utes. Both teams are coming off a bye. Kind of had to recalibrate a bit. The implications for the Big 12 are significant in this matchup. Arizona State is undefeated in league play, trying to solidify their status as a legitimate contender. This is one of the toughest games on their schedule so far this year. And for Utah, they're 1-1 in the conference. A second loss would present a significant blow to their conference title hopes. Kenny Dillingham and Kyle Whittingham, 2 very different guys, but equally fiery on both sides of the ball. Sam Leavitt, the Arizona State sophomore quarterback, has been pretty good this year. Not as good through the air as I was hoping, but on the ground, he's been outstanding. He's rushed for 275 yards this season with 5 touchdowns. He's the team's second leading rusher and has 13 total touchdowns that he's accounted for this year. Devin Dampier on the side of Utah has been pretty good throwing the football, pretty efficient on some underneath. He's also a real formidable threat with his legs as well. He's got 55 carries for 258. That's about 5 yards per carry average and a couple touchdowns as well. Question 1, how will Arizona State's rushing attack fare against Utah's rush defense? Arizona State's offense is built around trying to create advantages on the ground. They're a top 20 group running the football. They have a formidable duo involving Raleek Brown and Sam Leavitt at quarterback. This is going against a Utah run defense that, in a departure from the historical standard, has been somewhat vulnerable. They're just 64th nationally. They're giving up nearly 160 a game on the ground and over 4 carries. So we have not seen Utah's front 7 play this poorly in quite some time. Question 2, can Utah's passing attack hit Arizona State's secondary? Look, Devin Dampier has been really good, over 72% completion. He's including his top receivers. Ryan Davis has been good. Dallin Bentley's been good at tight end. This is a really efficient passing attack. And Arizona State's pass defense has not been great so far this year. They're in the 80s. So there's a bit of a mismatch right now. And you have a couple injuries there for the Sun Devil secondary. They got a safety that might be out for a couple weeks. They got a corner at nickel that's missed a couple games the last couple weeks. You got to think that Utah OC Jason Beck will design a plan to attack some of the guys that might be at less than 100% in the ASU backfield. And then question 3, can Arizona State's pass rush get home against Utah's offensive line? Look, this has been one of the best groups in the country. They're 5th in sack percentage allowed. I don't know if they've lived up to expectations so far this year. The Texas Tech game was not a great performance from them across the board. They'll be tested by an Arizona State defensive front that's been really good at generating pressures. They have 19 sacks through 5 games, and they will be very aggressive in this game. This is probably the strength of the defense, is this pass rush. So if they can disrupt the timing of a really efficient offense, then Dampier might have challenges in trying to create some advantages downfield. I'm taking the Utah Utes. I'll lay the points in this matchup. I think the Utes get back on track. Giant Killers, I'll give you 3 this week. On Thursday, I'll take East Carolina over Tulane. That's plus 6.5. Take the points there. I already told you I'm taking Arizona over BYU. They're getting 2.5. And then Georgia State's getting 2.5 against Appalachian State. So 3 Giant Killers for you. Should be some pretty good games. Things to look forward to there on a Thursday evening edition of college football. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. For Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, intern Sam, I'm Greg. We really appreciate you being with us here on our Week 7 preview show. We'll be back on Sunday, do our rapid fire recap. We will also go into the 10 takeaways a little later Sunday afternoon once we have some time to blitz the tape. So for all of us here at ACF, we appreciate you going. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the podcast. You can also go and check us out on the ESPN College Football YouTube page. So for all of us here at ACF, we hope you have an outstanding Week 7. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.